Welcome, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Atira, and I'm the daughter of Jetsama Akunlamo, who's the founder and spiritual director of KPC. So I've been coming here for a while, and so this class is part of a monthly series in which we discuss how to apply fundamental Buddhist principles to our daily lives. So every time we have this class, you're probably going to see a new person sitting in this seat teaching it. But so today's class is on the 6 Paramitas, or the 6 perfections. But before we get into the 6 perfections, I want to back up and cover, just recap some of the topics that we covered in previous classes, because those topics create the foundation for understanding the 6 Paramitas. So if you've come to previous classes, you've probably heard the term bodhichitta. Does anyone want to volunteer a definition of bodhichitta? Yes.
The wish to benefit all beings. The wish to be a benefit to all beings.
Great. Anyone else have anything else to add to that? Yeah.
I think it has a great compassion for all sentient beings, but it also has some wisdom awakening to that nature of Buddha nature we all have.
Great. So bodhicitta is the mind of enlightenment, and it encompasses both that compassion aspect and that wisdom aspect. And Jetsama said, the practice of bodhicitta is taking the vow of compassion, committing oneself to live one's life as a compassionate person, and moving into adopting the posture of and becoming a bodhisattva, that is, an awakening being who lives to benefit others. So everything we do on the path comes back to accomplishing that bodhicitta, living to benefit others. So Shakyamuni Buddha taught that there are 2 levels of truth. There's relative truth and absolute truth. And bodhicitta is of the same nature as truth, so it also has these 2 aspects, the relative bodhicitta and the absolute bodhicitta. The absolute bodhicitta is the non-dual, inconceivable expanse of primordial wisdom. It's the ultimate nature of all phenomena, and it's always radiating out as love and compassion for all beings, without any effort or any interruption. It's just always radiating love and compassion. And it freely arises in the world for the benefit of beings as relative bodhicitta. So and that would be the bodhicitta that we see and experience in a visceral way. So the relative bodhicitta is divided into 2 basic forms. There's aspirational bodhicitta and actualized bodhicitta. So aspirational bodhicitta is the first stage, which is developing that pure intention to awaken the Buddha qualities of all beings. And what's really important at that stage is to have a very pure motivation. We must really purely desire every being to be happy and free of suffering. And that's what we're trying to do in the aspirational stage, is really generate that sincere desire for all beings to be free of suffering. And then once we've really developed that pure motivation, that pure intention, then we can actually help others. But until we have that pure intention, then when we try to help others, we might be kind of doing it to help someone else. We also might be kind of doing it for ourselves. And so it's important to first establish that really pure intention so that our actions are pure. And the more pure our intention, once we really are centered in that bodhicitta, we can be of more benefit because we're really purely acting for the benefit of others. So the aspirational bodhicitta is a very important practice, and it's a very important step in accomplishing the bodhicitta. But it's not sufficient in itself to benefit other beings. Just wishing for others to be happy doesn't make it so. So once we generate that aspirational bodhicitta, then we have to actually work for the benefit of others. And we have to embody that bodhicitta in the external world, in our everyday activities. And when we embody that bodhicitta in our activities, that is the actualizing bodhicitta. So your little handouts that I made with my crayons, they show this. The aspirational bodhicitta, which you can see in that inner circle, is based upon the 4 immeasurables: the immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, and immeasurable equanimity. So we begin developing those qualities of the aspirational bodhicitta by saying prayers like, may all beings be happy. May the causes of their suffering be removed. May they always be joyful. May they always remain in a state of equanimity. And once we've firmly planted that wish in our hearts, that aspirational bodhicitta in our hearts, and truly given rise to that wish, then we can confidently perform actions for the benefit of others through the actualized bodhicitta, which is the 6 perfections. So Khenpo Palden Sherab explains that the bodhicitta is the true nature of the mind. And it's like a quartz crystal or a crystal ball that if you shine light through it, it reflects light in 6 different ways, through 6 different types of bodhicitta or bodhisattva actions. And those activities, those bodhisattva activities, are the 6 perfections. In Sanskrit, it's called the 6 paramitas. And paramita means transcendent action. So these actions are transcending the limits of the ego. And they're not performed in an egocentric way, but they're transcending our ego. And in English, they're called the 6 perfections, so you'll hear either one interchangeably. And these are the practices of transcendental generosity, moral discipline, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. So the six paramitas are a reflection of the 4 immeasurables in an active state. So we begin by arousing the aspirational bodhicitta through love, compassion, joy, equanimity, and then we bring that intention into action through the practice of the 6 paramitas, through generosity, moral discipline, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. Then we can practice the 6 paramitas all the time, during all of our daily activities. And to truly make them transcendental and truly transcend the limits of our ego, we should be practicing them all the time. We want them to become a continuous way of being, a continuous way of acting in the world. So it's easy sometimes to practice them when we feel like it or when our friends are watching, but we have to, just like when we're here in the prayer room, maybe you are extra mindful, but then you go to work and people are, maybe they're not doing what you like, or people are rude to you at a coffee shop, and it's more difficult. So it's really important to practice them in all circumstances all the time. And as we practice that, we get better and better at it, and we're able to practice them continuously. So we're not going to get through all 6 today. We're going to do the first 3 today, and then we're going to cover the next 3 in our next class on December 2nd. So the first paramita is transcendental generosity. And Khenpo Palden Sherab said, the aspect of bodhicitta which manifests in effortless response without grasping or ego clinging is known as transcendental generosity. To clarify this, it can be useful to consider its opposite, which is greed, or clinging to the thoughts, feelings, and possessions, not wanting to release your grip or let the object out of sight. This is attachment and territoriality. When bodhicitta radiates without holding on to anything, when you freely give away things that belong to you without any expectation, doubt, or regret, this is the perfection of generosity. So by practicing generosity, we loosen our grip on the things that we cling to. A lot of times we feel like we don't have anything to share. Maybe we're broke, or we feel like we don't have anything to offer someone. But the more we practice generosity, the more we realize that we always have something to share, even if it's our good intentions or a kind word. We always have something that we can offer to others. And by practicing generosity, you'll actually discover over time more and more how much you have to share. You start realizing your true wealth and how much you can always be giving. So there are 2 main areas of generosity. There's giving to those who are worse off than yourself, whether those beings are poor or needy or sick or hungry. And then there's giving to those better off than oneself, which means giving to the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So when we're giving to those who are worse off than us, what's important is compassion. We're temporarily relieving their poverty or hunger through compassion and because of compassion. And when we make offerings to the three jewels, it's an expression of devotion. And what's important is faith, devotion, and confidence in the power of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, recognizing how important they are. And that's an expression of devotion. So Thongru Rinpoche says, if one never gives to those who are worse off, then compassion isn't there, and it is not complete. In the same way, if one doesn't make offerings to the three jewels, then one's faith, confidence, and appreciation in the meaning of the three jewels isn't quite right either. So offerings are a very important sign of what is going on in terms of compassion or devotion. So whether we are offering to the three jewels or offering to someone in need, what's important is that what we offer is pure. So that means that it shouldn't be stolen. There shouldn't be any negativity argument over the acquisition of whatever we gave. Sometimes you get something in a mildly sketchy manner, it's a gray area. For instance, these handouts that I made, I had the thought yesterday and I was at work. We have this really nice high-tech copier at work, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just make copies of this while I'm at work, and that'd be easier, and they'd be higher quality copies would be great. And but that would be dishonest, it would be stealing, really, because I didn't ask permission to use company materials for that. So I waited till I got home, and I used my not-so-good copier at home to make the copies. Thanks. So, even if, so sometimes we excuse those small things like that, like, oh, I just borrowed this pen, or I'll just use this copier. But it's important that we really, when we offer something, we should have, come upon that thing honestly so that what we offer is truly pure. And our intention has to be pure as well. Our motivation is actually more important than whatever object it is that we offer. There's a beautiful story about that. There's a couple stories from different cultures about this nature of offering. I believe there's a story of a child offering a handful of sand to the Buddha. And there's a similar story in Mexican culture about a girl who offers a poinsettia to a nativity scene at Christmas. And in both these cases, the child felt like they had nothing to give, but they really felt called to make an offering. And but they just didn't have anything to give that they thought was worth anything. They didn't have any wealth. So, so in the case of with the Buddha, the child offered a handful of sand, but he offered it with such pure intentions. It was like offering a handful of jewels, and it created so much merit for him, and it was such a pure offering. So, that might be a better offering than someone who, with bad motivation or impure motivation, offers something really extravagant. So what you're really offering is your motivation and your pure intent, and that bodhichitta is what you're offering. So what are some ways that we might practice generosity? What are some things that we can give to others? You can give physical things, food, clothing, your time. What else? A smile, yeah.
Really asking someone how they're doing and really caring, what they have to say.
Yeah, your empathy.
Just Dharma.
The Dharma, yeah, you can offer the Dharma.
Protection from fear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Love and acceptance.
Yeah. Encouragement, yeah.
Listening.
Yep. So there's so many different ways we can offer. We can give in so many ways. So and so many of those don't cost anything, right? They just cost us our time or our effort. I think one of the ones that I noticed, and I was writing down a little list of things we could offer, and then I was reading some of the Dharma books, some of the examples, and one of the ones that I didn't think of was offering our speech through kind words, and offering, counseling others or expressing loving kindness, offering a compliment, things like that. Something a friend of mine suggested too was like offering the benefit of the doubt to someone, offering the, assuming best intentions of others. Sometimes it's like offering a grace to them instead of assuming the worst. So there's so many ways we can be generous to others. And transcendental generosity is usually divided into 3 categories, because we love lists in Buddhism. So there's a list for everything. It makes it easier to remember things, though. So the first one is the generosity of wealth. And there's a generosity of knowledge and the generosity of protection. So the generosity of wealth is offering anything material that we can offer freely without regrets or any expectation of return. And it's important to practice this according to your capabilities. You might go out and be really exuberant and like, well, I'm going to offer all my money to this organization. And then the next day, you realize that you still have to pay rent, and you really regret that. So, that would not be good, because then you're regretting what you did. And if you feel regret, you're spoiling your effort. You want this to be free. So when you offer to others, you're really letting go. So you always want to be happy with your actions when you're generous. You want to be happy with whatever you've offered. And the Buddha said that for beginners who are not used to practicing generosity, or if you find it very difficult to practice generosity, you can start with something as small as, I'll give this little goat, for instance. So you could use pennies or a little miniature goat, and you could just pass that from one. You can meditate while you pass that from one hand to the other, and practice that very small exchange, practicing the motion of generosity. So even if you just start there, by practicing more and more, you familiarize yourself with that process, and you begin to open to the practice of transcendental generosity. So you don't expect your generosity to be perfect right away. Any of the 6 perfections, you're not going to be perfect right away at them. So we just start where we are, and you try to do what you can. And sometimes we may have the thought that like, oh, I should give this person this, this thing. And then you immediately think, no, I should keep that. And that's really, that's okay. That's normal, and that's our habit, and that's normal. So you can just try to work with those thoughts and transcend those thoughts. So for example, let's say the hurricanes hit in Texas and Florida and Puerto Rico. I saw all of this news coverage of these animals that are suffering. And I thought, man, I really want to help these animals. I'm going to donate $50 to some animal rescue organization. And then I thought, I don't want to donate $50. I don't know if I can afford that. And, or maybe I needed the money. Maybe I, just wanted to wait till my next paycheck. Maybe I just wanted it. Maybe I was just uncomfortable with it. But I thought, no, I don't want to donate $50. But that doesn't mean I have to stop and say I won't give anything. You can still respond to that notion of giving. Even if you're not ready to give as generously as your first thought, you can still give. So you can find that point of comfortability where you can still act on that thought. So maybe I couldn't give $50, but I could give 20, or I could give 10, or 5, or even $1. But something so that when I have that thought of giving, I can follow through on giving. And by following through on that, we create a habit where then more and more we have that thought of giving and we give. And we have less and less of a delay, and we give more and more freely. So even if you can't be as generous as you want to give, you can just try to give something. Anytime you have the thought to give, try to give something. And you can aspire to give more the next time. And if you just keep practicing with courage and a joyful attitude, then eventually your practice of generosity will become limitless. So the second type of generosity is the generosity of knowledge. And the knowledge that we're talking about is the wisdom which dispels ignorance, which is the Dharma. So sharing the Dharma with others is a wonderful gift. It's a wonderful gift that we can give to others because it teaches people about their true nature, reveals their inner nature, and removes their obscurations. So it teaches people how to act on their positive qualities and how to refrain from engaging in their negative qualities. And by doing those things, we're able to attain happiness. So whenever we share the Dharma with others, that's a direct line for them to start learning how to be happy in their own lives as well and how to benefit others. So just like with any of the forms of generosity or any of the paramitas, what's important first is to establish a pure motivation, a pure intention. So you don't want to share the Dharma to make yourself sound intelligent, maybe win an argument, or to seem cool. Oh yeah, I'm into this thing called Buddhism, it's really neat. So, you don't want to do that. Or like to inflate your reputation, to get rich. These are not reasons to share the Dharma. So you have to be motivated by love and compassion. You're truly sharing this because you feel like it's going to benefit others. And this is different than proselytizing. Proselytizing is not really for the benefit of others. You're kind of hammering someone over the head with something that they're not necessarily open to. But when there's truly an opportunity where you can say something of benefit that will help someone, that's, take that opportunity and share whatever Dharma you have. So it's important always to practice according to your own capabilities. So in this sense, with sharing the Dharma, the capability is to invoke inner wisdom and remove the obscurations of others. So if you go to see Jetsama teach, or you see His Holiness Karmakuchin teach, or any of the amazing Rinpoches or Khenpos that come through here and teach, they're very skilled at invoking that inner wisdom and removing the obscurations of others, so they can bring great benefit to others through sharing the Dharma. They have accomplished this pure intention, and they're skilled in what they say, how they say it, so they can really help beings. I'm not skilled like that, but I can read books, and I can share with you all what I read. So that's what I can do. That's the level that I can share the Dharma. And everyone has these capabilities to some degree, even if it's just a word that you can share, or a mantra, or just an idea like, hey, don't harm others. That's something that you can share, and that will bring benefit. And the third type of generosity is the generosity of protection. And this involves preserving the lives of others. So this would apply to a situation such as knowing that someone is going to be killed or executed and helping them escape or offering ransom for them. And that is yet to come up for me in my daily life. I don't know about you, but but in a less extreme case, it would mean doing whatever you can to help protect the lives of others. So, and this applies to all sentient beings. So any sentient being that you see that's going to die or be killed, you can help them and try to protect their life. And this kind of offering is so special because life is precious to everyone. Even little ants and spiders, they value their life. They don't want to die. So actually this Friday, we have an opportunity to practice this. Friday is a special holiday called Labab Duchen, and it's one of, I think, 8 holidays that we have in a year. 4, sorry, doubling. Yeah. Yeah, there's more that we add, yeah. So there's 4 a year, and they're called 10 million days because the actions that we take on these days, the effects of those actions, or like those actions, whether positive or negative, are multiplied by 10 million times. So we really want to do good on these days. And on 10 million day, we usually do a live release practice where we get a whole bunch of worms and crickets. And and all beings value life. So we get a whole bunch of worms and crickets, and we take them around the stupas, and we say prayers, and we release them. So we're getting these worms and crickets from bait shops. They would be killed and used in the effort of killing others too. But so we take those and we rescue them and we release them. Other sanghas may do this with other beings. There's a sangha up in Maine that does this with lobsters and crabs. They rescue lobsters and crabs from the fishermen and then release them out into the sea. And there are many ways to do this practice. Whether you can save a dog or cat from euthanasia, adopting a dog at the shelter, that's saving a life. Or if you see someone that's going to stomp on an ant, you can say, "Hey, leave it alone," and you save its life. You can be practicing this and just be mindful of protecting the lives of those around you. So this kind of practice, saving the lives of others, also extends your own life. So every kind of generosity that we practice, it actually comes back to us. Sometimes we think that if we're generous to others, that it's just going to deplete our own resources. But it's not true. It may seem that way in the short term, but it's not true. When you give wealth generously, it increases your wealth. When you give knowledge generously, your wisdom deepens. And when we protect others, we're also protecting our own lives. And this isn't our motivation. Our motivation isn't to get things back, but just know that it all comes back. So you're never really losing anything by offering to others. And likewise, whatever wealth that we have now in our lives is the fruit of our past generosity. And so you can look at your own life and see how much wealth you have and know that this is because you've practiced generosity in the past. And so you know that practicing generosity now will only serve to benefit you in the future. And similarly, if you're feeling really broke, you might think, wow, maybe I wasn't generous enough in the past. Maybe I should really work on letting go and offering to others. So among the 6 paramitas, this practice of generosity is the first one, and it's the easiest one to practice. You don't have to start with big, gigantic offerings. You can start small, but you should always be happy when you give, and just keep trying to give more and more. So the second paramita is transcendental moral discipline. In Sanskrit, this is called sila, which translates to discipline or morality. And so you'll hear both. In some translations, you'll see it referred to as discipline or morality. I like the term moral discipline because it spans both. So Khenpo Palden Cherub said, "When bodhicitta radiates in a very gentle way, this is the paramita of self-discipline. When pride and arrogance dissolve, and our attitude is one of harmlessness and peace, we are practicing transcendental morality. Sila is also like air conditioning in that it means to cool down. It is the ability to disperse the heat of the negative emotions of ignorance, attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, and doubt. The fire of these emotions makes us very uncomfortable. Sila will cool them down and calm us, while reducing and eventually removing all negativity and immorality. At the same time, it also increases more positive qualities." So, as with all the other paramitas, we start practicing discipline in very simple ways. And the practice of moral discipline goes a little bit deeper than the practice of generosity. Because in the practice of generosity primarily focuses on external relations, offering to others. And moral discipline strikes a balance between the internal and external aspects of our being. So, without this equanimity between the inner and outer aspects of our existence, then our ability to communicate and care for others, to act appropriately and respect other people's views and opinions, our ability to do that will be limited and chaotic. So this reminded me of a quote that may or may not be from Mahatma Gandhi. He might have said, happiness is when your thoughts, words, and actions are in harmony. So I'm sure some of you have heard that quote before. I'm not absolutely sure if Mahatma Gandhi said that, but it seems true. Happiness is when your thoughts, words, and actions are in harmony. And this requires exercising mindfulness and wisdom in our daily activities so that every aspect of your life and every action that you take can be imbued with love and compassion. So, you might think, even if someone has a very compassionate intent and they really want to serve others, but maybe on the outside they seem really rough or coarse in some way. Like something that came to mind was, maybe there's these groups of bikers that protect children from violence. If a child is being bullied, they'll come and stand outside the child's house and protect them from bullies or threats. And I don't know about you, but I would probably feel kind of intimidated to go up to a biker that's really maybe seems, maybe rough and tumble, or might say, I don't know where he's coming from. He's got an aggressive exterior, and I might be scared to ask him for help. And clearly, in that case, the children, they're using that exterior in a positive way. But the idea is that if you're rough and coarse in your actions and your manners and in the way you relate to others, even if you are truly kind underneath that, it might be hard for people to see that you're coming from a kind place. And that makes it difficult to help others if you're always having to explain yourself, or it's hard to gain trust of others. So by practicing mindfulness during our activities, we can make sure that our manners and gestures are gentle and peaceful, that our environment is peaceful, so that others will be relaxed and comfortable around us, and they can truly see where we're coming from and see our kind intentions. And this makes it easier to help them. You can see this really clearly when you work with animals, especially because, if you're trying to help a stray dog, for instance, and you're kind of erratic in your being, and you're kind of, you're coming from a helpful place, but you're also like, hey, get over here, and you're sounding angry, they're not going to know to trust you. But when you're acting with integrity, and in all of your actions and mannerisms and words, you are expressing that kindness and bodhicitta, it's very easy for that animal to come to you. So Chagda Tukku Rinpoche says, in the practice of moral discipline, we continually check our motivation to ensure that we use our body, speech, and mind skillfully, that we are not only truly harmless but helpful. In addition, we strive to create conditions that will enable us to produce the greatest benefit, learning what we need to learn, pulling together the necessary resources, and so on. Finally, we remain tireless in our discipline. So there are two forms of moral discipline. The first one is worldly discipline, which mostly refers to respecting the ways of others. So if there are well-observed customs or traditions in a country, or maybe you go over to someone's house that's from a different culture or religion than you, and they have different traditions, respect them. You don't say, oh, you're wrong for doing that, or diss them, or make a show of not agreeing with them. It's important to respect the views of others and respect their cultures of others. And this isn't the same as mindlessly following societal norms. This is something that we're doing mindfully. And we're doing this first with the bodhicitta intention. And while we're practicing the bodhicitta, we're respecting the local customs. So this also means respecting the law, whatever the law of the land is. It also refers to that. The second form is spiritual discipline, and there are many teachings on this subject at all different levels. So the first teaching on this is that you must avoid violent and harmful activities. You don't want to harm anyone. And that's the spiritual discipline of the Hinayana school, is not to harm others. Then the Mahayana view of this practice builds on that. Not only do you avoid harming others, but you also work to perform virtuous activities for the benefit of others. And then in the Vajrayana, we build on that a little bit more. And the Vajrayana spiritual discipline would be to see everything as a display of the awakened state. So we practice maintaining the view of seeing everything as the pure display of the awakened state of the Buddha nature, while refraining from harmful actions and while working for the benefit of others. So the Buddha gave many teachings on morality at all different levels, and you can practice that according to your capabilities. So, you can start by not harming others and work towards helping them and work towards maintaining that view. And it's important to always start wherever you are. So the third paramita is transcendental patience. Khenpo Palden Sherab said, when bodhicitta radiates as tolerance and bravery, it is known as the third paramita, transcendental patience. So this paramita goes a little deeper than the other two. Generosity is focused on, is applied externally. And then moral discipline focuses on the equanimity between our body, speech, and mind, the inner and outer aspects of our being, making sure that we're always acting in line with our values. And then the paramita of patience deals mostly with the mind and our emotions, and it's something we practice internally. So according to Khenpo Palden Sherab, the nature of patience is unshakable courage in maintaining awareness in its original state. That means that whatever happens, externally or internally, you never lose your identification with the bodhicitta. So patience is the antidote to anger and intolerance, the desire to hurt others. So, and those are a result of a failure to love, a lack of compassion. Patience allows us to let go of anger. And so in understanding the importance of patience, it's important to understand how awful anger is and how poisonous anger is. So learning to let go of anger is tremendously important. All of the negative emotions are poisons, but anger and jealousy are especially volatile and especially dangerous. Buddha Shakyamuni taught that even if you perform many virtuous activities and accumulate a vast store of merit, one moment of anger can spoil all of that good that you did. It's, I think there's the example of, just one match can light an entire mountain of hay aflame. So just one little spark of anger can just burn down our good intentions. So maybe not forever, you can always rebuild, but for the time being, it spoils the good that you've done. And we know that anger is bad for us because we suffer terribly when we're angry, and we make everyone around us suffer. And so when we're under the influence of anger or jealousy, our minds are never relaxed. And this leads to other problems. It increases our stress, it causes physical problems, it causes psychological problems, it causes problems in our relationships with others, and it expands out. It creates miserable conditions which affect you, your family members, your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors, the nation, the world. It's toxic, and it seeps into the environment and spreads out. So if we want to bring peace and harmony to the world, we have to practice patience. And we work through our difficulties without emotional reactivity, then we increase our bodhicitta, and that helps increase our courage and commitment. Chagdad Tuku Rinpoche says, we practice patience by relentlessly pursuing our efforts to benefit others, no matter what their reaction or their attitude toward us. We also develop patience as an antidote to aggression, anger, and hatred. A Buddhist proverb says, for an evil such as anger, there is no practice like patience. It contributes to our peace of mind and ultimately to the attainment of enlightenment. He goes on to say, patience can be applied on a personal, local, or national level. Whenever an individual or a group creates problems for others, instead of reacting to their aggression with anger, we should remind ourselves that all beings have been our mothers and have shown us great kindness, that out of ignorance, they neither understand this connection, nor realize that they are planting seeds of suffering. By not responding in kind, we benefit all those involved because our forbearance very quickly diffuses aggression and we don't create further problems. So there's a list for this too. There are 3 kinds of patience. The first one is never mind patience. There's also acceptance of whatever comes with steadfast patience and courage. And then there is the patient persistence in understanding the perfect meaning of Dharma. So never mind patience relates to events which you feel are unfair or unreasonable. Someone cuts you off in line at the grocery store, and you want to react like, hey, I was there first. Do you realize you just cut me off? But driving on 495, this probably comes up a lot. And when you react like this, you're holding on to the event and inflaming it. You're giving it the energy and attention to develop. And sometimes we really do this. Someone could cut you in line at the grocery store and you get mad at them, maybe you yell at them, maybe you hold that story all day and you tell people, oh, this woman cut me in line in the grocery store and it took me 5 more minutes to get through the line and it ruined my day. And then it's like you're really holding on to that negativity and that anger. And it's kind of, it feels kind of good. Anger makes us feel strong and in control, but it's so destructive and it doesn't help anyone. It's making you miserable. And then you spread it to others. How your friend's not really that interested in hearing about how this woman cut you off at the store, in line. So it's better to just let it go. And a small thing can grow into a big scene when we throw anger into the mix. So anger is never going to help the situation. It's only going to make things worse. So it's important to try not to be too sensitive or reactive. If you don't pay attention to unimportant things, they usually dissolve. I mean, if someone cuts you off in line at the store and you don't pay attention to it and you say, oh, no big deal, whatever, 5 more minutes, you go on with your day. The next day you probably won't even remember that it happened. It will make no difference in your life. So this never mind attitude is the attitude of being a duck, letting the rain roll off your back, Practice of being a duck. So the second kind of patience is joyful acceptance. If we experience suffering or sadness, we should be courageous and joyfully accept our difficulties. So a lot of the time, something happens and we immediately say, that's terrible, this is going to be awful. And sometimes it turns out to not be that bad, or it actually turns out to be a good thing. We don't really know when, if something's good or bad, but we love jumping to conclusions, though. So, and then maybe it turns out to be good, and you got yourself like all riled up about this thing, and then it was no big deal. So, you can save yourself the suffering and don't react right away. And also, sometimes it really is an awful situation, and many masters have said that suffering is the dawn of great joy, because difficulties can help us grow. If we're never challenged, we never grow stronger. And if no one ever made us angry, we wouldn't have the opportunity to practice patience. So difficulties are actually very helpful to us, and they can help to transform our daily life into a practice of these 6 perfections, if we accept our difficulties and are willing to work with them. So in this aspect of patience, we're joyfully accepting whatever lemons life hands us, and we're turning it into the lemonade of being able to work with them and figuring out how can we deal with this in a bodhicitta way, in a bodhisattva way.
Joyfully.
Yes, joyfully. Yeah, that's the game, joyfully. So there's a very famous song by Longchenpa which says, I honor the obstacles, I honor the suffering, because they help me to attain enlightenment. And he continues in that song, if everything was easy, convenient, and beautiful, I might not have come to these realizations. So we should embrace whatever difficulties life throws at us and allow them to help us grow. Joyfully accept them as a challenge that is going to help us. The third kind of patience is patience in acquiring the profound view of the Dharma. This means opening to wisdom so as to have a perfect understanding of everything and move beyond the narrow limitations of our conceptual thought. So right now we think like sentient beings, limited to what our five senses tell us. So we believe in the inherent existence of the things we see, the sounds we hear, the odors we smell, the sensations we feel, and probably most dangerous of all, the thoughts we think. So that's how we perceive the world, in a very limited and ordinary way. And we really believe all of this is true and concrete, and this is what there is. This is all there is. And if we're confronted with other views or new information, we might get cynical or even a little hostile when something challenges our ideas of the way things are. We're very confident in our ignorance, and we like clinging to our beliefs and our habits. And if a new way of thinking threatens those, watch out. So this made me think of, once upon a time we thought that the sun spun around the earth. And people were killed when they said otherwise. And now we know that the earth revolves around the sun, and that's a no-brainer. But, in that way, we can see that just because, you think something's true at the time, the evidence points to something at the time, doesn't necessarily mean that that's totally true, 100% true. Our understandings of things change all the time. And think of the way that you understood the world when you were a child, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, compared to how you understand the world now. And our understanding is always growing deeper and changing. So we want to take whatever we think, however we think things are, you want to just think of that with a grain of salt and be open to the idea that there's more than you can currently understand. So there are so many things to understand beyond our limited senses. And the profound meaning of the true nature, the absolute bodhichitta, is beyond our present state of conceptual knowledge and dualistic limitations. Our five senses are not going to teach us about the absolute nature of reality. They help us navigate the relative reality, but they don't really help us understand the absolute nature of reality. So you don't want to obstruct your inner wisdom and the development of your inner wisdom by clinging to wrong views, clinging to your current beliefs and your current habits. It's important to realize that there may be things that you don't fully understand yet. And the practice of patience in this way is to stay open so that you still have an opportunity to appreciate those deeper truths when you're capable of understanding them. So those are the first three paramitas. So those are the first three paramitas, and that's it for those. I think we're going to be doing a practice of Chenrezig, is that right? And as I mentioned before, this class is part of a series on applying Buddhist principles to your daily life, and it meets on the first Saturday of every month. So on the next one is on December 2nd, and we'll finish exploring the 6 paramitas in that class. And then there's another class on the third Saturday of every month, the Beginning Buddhist Prayer and Meditation series. And the next class is on November 18th, and will be on the Shower of Blessings practice. And then this Friday, as I mentioned earlier, this Friday is Labab Duchen, and there'll be many events throughout the day. We'll be reading texts aloud and doing prayer practices. There's the live release practice that I mentioned earlier, so you can save little worms and crickets. You don't have to touch them if they gross you out, but you can take part in the event. And also Khenpo Tenzin Norgay will be here this weekend. So he'll be giving a teaching on Saturday at 2 about Zambala, which is the deity of wealth, whose essence is generosity. So that would be a great way also to further your knowledge in the first paramita of generosity. And then on Sunday, there'll be an empowerment, a 21 Zambala empowerment, which is an initiation into the practice of Zambala. So, any questions or comments before we go into the practice?
It occurred to me, when we were talking about patience and embracing, difficulties, as an antidote for anger. From my personal experience, a memory came flashing back when I was in the military, and we would be literally out in the jungle sometimes, and just when you would think things couldn't get any worse, those of us around me, small group, we would begin to laugh about it, and the term we would use was, "I wish this could suck more." And we would say that with all sincerity, we would laugh about it. We would wish it could be worse.
Yeah.
As an antidote to it being so bad. So then
That's
it kind
great.
of made sense.
Yeah. That's great. Especially if you're able to appreciate difficulties as helping you to grow, then that's a great attitude to have. Yeah. Great. All right.
So, Tira, I have the schedule for Labab Duchen. You want me to
Sure.
give the times?
Yeah.
Okay, so opening prayers are at 10. And then there's a Shakyamuni practice at 11 here in this room. The live release is at 4 p.m. And the the offering of food, generosity practice again, is at 7 p.m. on the Friday the 10th.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Should we do the Chenrezig practice?
Yeah, let's do the Chenrezig
So we
practice.
didn't have enough of these, so we'll use the Chenrezig that's actually in the yellow book. So we're going to use this practice. It's slightly different, same practice, just arranged a little differently. So this starts on page 93 of this yellow book. It's the opening closing prayer book. Namo Konjo Tsundan Sewa Sum Kyabne Namla Kyab Tsuchi Drokun Sangye La Goche Chanchu Chutu Senkedo Rani Tuje Chemponi Karpo Shakchik Shashipa Taja Chemwa Pemazen Kiltru Natna Da Jegem Pema Da Weden Lazu O Mani Mi O Mani Pemehum O Mani Pemehum O Mani Pemehum Lai Jente Manchuka Shakchik Shachita Shadam Pewa Pema Deweten Tilmo Chugi Shupasam Om Om Soha Om Om Soha Om Om Soha Om Mani Pemehum Om Mani Pemehum Om Mani Pemehum Lame Jinde Manju Jan Shashi Ta Shadang Gosun Pema Deweden Tilmo Jugi Shubazam Oma Soha Oma Soha Oma Soha Oma Ni Beme jin ten wan chu tra shak chik shak shi ta sha dang tre wan pen ma da wei ten til mo chu ki shu pa sam om ni so ha om ni so ha om ni so ha om mani pe me om mani pe me om mani pe me du dru je ten wan ju de shak chik shak shi ta sha dang po te pe ma da wei ten til mo chu gi sha par sam om pe so ha om pe so ha om pe so ha om mani me me om mani me me om mani me me yi da je ten wan ju ma shak chik shak shi ta sha dan dru bu pe ma da wei ten til mo chu gi shu pa sam om me so ha om me so ha om me so ha om mani me me om mani me me om mani me me na wei jin ten wan ju nang shao shi cha sha dan me chu pe ma chan ne zen til mo chu gi shu pa sam ong hong so ha ong hong so ha ong hong so ha om mani me me om mani me me om mani me me om mani be 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 me Om mani padme hum ge wa di yin du da chen re se wan jab yu ne Om mani padme hum Om mani padme hum Om mani padme hum Druwa chicken malupa de sala gupashot Om mani padme hum Om mani padme hum Om mani padme hum. So turn to page 82.
Sonanda yi tamche sepa ni chupe ni pe tradam pa je shin ke gana chi perla chuk pa yi sepe sole drawar sho ri jenge so da yi drawa kun tatu tampe chodan ne draw shi rajenan zopa ta chene chunga drupe jiten bar sho sange de bar de shinge bar sho senten tanchen de shinge bar sho ne dan sendu chula chu bar sho rajen doni lugi dru bar sho ke wa kundu yandan lama dan drame choki bala long joji sada longi yonten razone doje jangi gyobanyo tocho. Then to page 56 for Jetsuma's dedication prayer. By this effort, may all sentient beings be free of suffering. May their minds be filled with the nectar of virtue. In this way, may all causes resulting in suffering be extinguished, and only the light of compassion shine throughout all realms. So, Atira, I just remembered something, and everybody here, the chanting is so beautiful. We've actually been asked to do the Amitabha practice as well. We were supposed to do it after Riggs and Dupe on Monday. This is for our group in Sedona. Would you mind if we chanted that together? Okay. So this is on page 87. Are you okay chanting one more practice? Always. Great. This will be chanted in Payson. This is for the group in Payson. Yeah, because Camille's coming back here. He wants to make sure they have a nice recording of this Amitabha, which he's taught them. And Jetsuma wanted us to do it as a group. So this is beautiful. This is perfect. 887. Okay, so we kind of did a little shortcut in the first one. These first 4 lines we'll repeat 3 times. We'll do this one properly. Namo kanjo tsundan sewa sun kyabne namla chap suji Nrokun sangye lagaji chanju chutu sekedo Namo kanjo tsundan sewa sun kyabne namla chap suji Nrokun sangye lagaji chanju chutu sekedo Namo kanjo tsundan sewa sun kyabne namla kyab suchi drokun sangye lagaji chanchu chutu senkedo meto chike pemeten denarane sempatya dondu pemateliza Opa mengo kodoma shakshe shani yamjante loze zinchin chugosu chilmo chugi shubala Yesu jenten wanchukar shakshik shashi tarjadan Ye yung trengwa pemezin zambe taki pedaju yondu chado temchem do shakshik shani kudongo ye yondo je drilbuzin jambe taki pedaju sange chamchu sembadan yentu drachamba meko So sugi ne sungi drusu la ye no trube dewa chen chen dran jangur o mami dewari benza samayatza zang hom bam ho triksha len atipu ho Om Hung Tram Riya Abi Kenzamam Om Benzer Ajam Pajam Pupe Dupe Aloke Gende Niwite Shapta Patitsa Ye Soha Unde chen chen du choki ka lor kor sem chen nam la ta tu tu je je dan cha xiao she zhe wa che se bang nam ta yan shan sen la cha sa tu la so ku le ngo ze ne che tru de chen shen ne o pa me pa ye Kudanan chen cha sem pa me pa cha shen ba ne da la tem pa gyur o mami de wari o mami de wari o mami de wari o mami de wari o mami de o mami de wari o mami de wari Om Mami Devara Om Mami Devara Om Ami Devari Om Ami Devari Om Ami Devari Om Ami Devari Gombo Pamela Chasalo Necho Dewa Chendu Kewarsho Om Ami Dewa Ri Om Ami Dewa Ri Om Ami Dewa Ri Gombo Pamela Chasalo Necho Dewa Chendu Kewarsho Om Ami Dewa Ri Om Ami Dewa Ri Om Ami Dewa Ri Gombo Pamela Chasalo Necho Dewa Chendu Gewarsho Gewa di na du da opa mango jajane Jawa chika malupa de salago barsho. By this effort, may all sentient beings be free of suffering. May their minds be filled with the nectar of virtue. In this way, may all causes resulting in suffering be extinguished, and only the light of compassion shine throughout all realms. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for coming.